We started this week talking about why students leave. I want to end it by talking about what makes them stay. Not rules, not an obligation, not grades, not a requirement from the school or their parents, not the performance schedule, not that trip to Disneyland they want to go on so badly. The thing that makes students stay is that feeling that music is theirs. It is creating a musical identity for them no matter what level they're at, no matter what their struggles, and no matter what their strengths. They want to feel and know that what they're doing is an act of creation, not just one of execution. And today I'm going to give you a complete implementation guide to make sure that happens. When you go from open strings to orchestra pieces to solo repertoire, solo and ensemble, and you create an identity for your students, no matter their level, no matter their learning type, and no matter their struggles and strengths, you are going to build programs that are really hard to quit. So what would your program feel like if every student in your orchestra or in your private studio felt like a creative musician, like someone who could come up with something from scratch, like someone who could really connect to what they're playing, really express, or felt good about what they were doing, no matter what level they were? What if they could feel amazing, not just executing and being successful and passing the audition, but every time they hit the practice room, every time they come to rehearsal or a lesson, their eyes would light up because they know they have something to offer the instrument and the music and the people they're around, and that instrument has something to offer them that is meaningful. If we haven't met, I'm EP Archer, and I help committed adults play the violin with beautiful tone and confidence without giving up the music they love. I have over 30 years experience working with young people, all the way from preschool all the way up to college, and I have enjoyed this series so much because I know how draining it can be to put your life into a classroom or a private studio for 40, 60, 80 or more hours a week. And I just want to give you some tools you can use that will make you excited, help you light up that spark for yourself, and have a little bit more fun. So let's go through our implementation guide. We're going to exactly give you a framework and structure that adds all the tools that we've been working on in this series. So if you missed it, episodes 72, 73, 74, and 75, go over these, and this is the big kahuna where we put it all together. So number one, we're going to start with our progression. Here's how we build. Go in this order. First, doing things in the air with posture, with body movement, really honing in on what it feels like without the instrument. Of course, you can go from that to just using a dowel or a pencil on either hand so that we do have some tactile interaction, but not something that produces a sound and not something that produces stress. Something that just adds another variable to the mix. After we start in the air, we move to having that dowel or that pencil. Then we're going to do our softest version of the technique, our most gentle, relaxed, barely making a sound version of that. And that might be a very light pizzicato on either hand, a tapping. It might be those strings barely being grazed by the bow hair, but our most soft production of that so we can stay focused on what the body feels like, not the sound. And finally, our full voice. What we want to do is always start with a progression. Don't start with a full piece of music or an excerpt. Start with open strings and add one variable at a time. Add only a specific bow stroke to an open string or a slur to open strings, or add fingers, not both at the same time. You want to gently layer one technique on top of another. And you can do this throughout the week. If you meet 5 times a week, you can gradually layer one more thing on each day of the week until we feel super comfortable. Remember, you can go from open strings to single notes. You can go from single notes to triads, and from triads and pentatonic scales to actual patches of the melody or excerpts of the piece that they are working on. You can do scales with drones in harmony with sections. So bass and cellos play the root as a drone. Violas are going to play the third, and then second violins the fifth, and first violins the root, and then they move up the scale. And you can keep the basses on the drone the whole time or have them switch from the root to the fourth to the fifth. But basically, we want to start orchestrating this if you're in a group. And if you're working with a private student, you want them to be able to retain the technique, the tuning, and the tone with other variables in their external. So whether I play with a drone or a chord on the piano or on the guitar or with my teacher creating harmony, I want to be able to be solid on what I just interacted with. You can use scale improvisation, chord improvisation, folk or fiddle style melody backup patterns, pizzicato, bass lines, 4 measures of your current piece. But whatever you take, the biggest key is to get it off the page. Turn the stand around, flip the music over. What we're doing, we want to commit to memory. And y'all know as well as I do that when we're working on harder music, we are not reading it. Right? The hardest pieces and the hardest sections of our pieces are places where we want to ingrain and memorize so that we can focus on what really matters, our tone, our confidence, our intonation, and whatever technique or style we want to achieve. And if we give our students that same opportunity, it is really going to boost their enjoyment of what they're doing. Remember, the piano or the guitar part for your orchestra is your secret weapon. If you don't know what the chord or triad is, it's usually notated in there or written out on the staff. So check it out. It's the fastest way to get it, and it can help you with your music theory and teaching that theory to your students without making it a boring theory lesson. Once they hear their note against a drone or a triad or a chord, they start understanding, hearing, and feeling harmony in their body. That also helps with creating music, with improvisation, and with being confident on their note, especially when it's a weird note. Am I right? When you have a tritone or the seventh of the chord and you're pitting that against the third in another section, really hearing what that full chord sounds like on the piano or guitar or having everybody tune it is really awesome for them to be able to start feeling confident about those tension notes, about that dissonance that makes music so juicy. Having rewards and accountability will breathe life into it. Extra participation credit for anyone willing to lead an improv session, to be able to demonstrate for their peers, to be able to record an audio, a video, or just come up with an idea. Hey, what string do we want? Awesome. Because we want them engaged and we want them to have that buy-in. Even if they pick a piece of music or a 3-note thing, maybe it's Smoke on the Water and some kid yells that out and you're like, yeah, let's do it. Try it on the G, try it on the C strings, try it on the A string, but to allow that life to be breathed into student choices through rewards, through accountability, through not just positive encouragement, but us saying yes and figuring out a way to wrap these techniques and wrap these different ways of feeling alive and improvisation around their idea and what they want to do. For your private studio, one student can do this, and it's even a little bit easier in the private studio because you don't have to mitigate the harmony, right? You can have everybody doing the same thing in an orchestra, but it doesn't quite sound like orchestra music. So you really want to get to the point where you have a bass note, some sort of harmony note, and then either melody, improv, scale exercises, or a technique that's going on, or improvising many different techniques in succession over just open strings and triads. And in the private studio, you're going to do that and you're going to be able to just get a little bit more done in a shorter amount of time. You can do call and response, you can show them a variable, and you can do it right with them in real time as you become duet partners. The framework isn't ensemble dependent, it's human dependent. It's asking for us to connect and to engage differently than we usually do. Instead of going from A to B, or instead of creating success immediately, what we want to do is create connection, engagement, buy-in, integration. We want to be able to feel things in our body and have them feel correct. So that's why we go from in the air to something quiet to something full voice. And that's why we start with just one layer, aka maybe just your bow is on the stand and your left hand is doing a shuttle exercise or a gentle vibrato. And then it's vibrato on the string. And then I finally add my bow. So when we stack layer at a time, and when we focus on one thing that can really be felt in the body and in the expression, our students can be successful immediately. And when a problem arises and when there's a challenge, they can work through that by feeling in their body. They can look around and see what other bodies look like and feel like. They can see you. And that is amazing, right? Because they're going to be able to correct by connecting with other people. And that is a huge payoff. You see, when students feel like their music class, their orchestra, their private lesson is a place where they contribute, where they're important, where they create, where their choices matter, and where they get to actually feel successful even with something that's brand new, where they're valuable no matter what their level. We all have so many different levels of students, but no matter what, we want them to feel like their choices matter. They get to create, they can connect, and they can express. And when that happens, truly, they don't want to leave. They want to stay forever. And so sometimes it takes a little bit of extra work with that student that might be difficult or have some behavior stuff going on or have different learning styles, different brains, neurodivergence, all of the things that make us beautiful palette of humans, that we are better at solving certain problems than others. All of that becomes an asset when we just slow it down, we strip it away, and we focus on one thing at a time. And then each student gets to solve in their own way. Each student gets to contribute as part of who they are, and they get to start feeling like musicians. Remember that the research shows cohesion, intrinsic motivation, all increase when improvisation is integrated as a practice. And I hope this series has shown you that improvisation doesn't mean you have to play jazz with your string orchestra or your private student. It means that you are changing up, doing variations, iterating, and being creative in the way that you practice. It can be as simple as that. It can be super fun. I know when you hear an idea, you might get excited. And then when you think about implementing it in your classroom or your studio, you might get a little bit deflated. So I have free resources for you to implement this either in the private studio or in an orchestra, whether it's beginner, intermediate, or advanced. So come and join us, facebook.com/group/adult violin. Pop in, say hi, let me know you're a string teacher, and grab those free resources. I'll be presenting all of this at the ASTA conference this summer and creating a free mini course for teachers soon. So come hit me up, EP Archer on Facebook. Our group is called Violin Unlocked. Facebook.com/groups/adult violin. You can find the link in the show notes. Don't hesitate. Just come say hi, because I've got tools and resources for you. And who doesn't want some extra stuff like that for free? Remember, your most confident and beautiful tone for yourself and your students is through improvisation. And your best improvisation is on the other side. And I'll see you there.